Hello World Wide Web, I'm Dr. Shado, the internet personality with the best hair. And after last month, I'm sure we'd all like something a little different, so how about giant killer bugs with legs? 8 in fact making these arachnids, though not of Clan Dathu, but rather Arizona. Indeed, today's review is of the giant killer spider movie from 2002, 8-Legged Freaks. Or 8-legged freaks, considering they forgot to put a hyphen in there. But anyway, this is another one of those big-budget reimaginings of a classic B-movie style from the 50s, the giant bug movie. Of course, this is done with a modern twist by 2002 standards. As such, even though I have seen reviews from when this movie was new singing praises on how the giant spiders look 100% real, yeah, in my opinion the CGI is not really that convincing. But as with many monster movies, a lot of the story comes down to feelings between the characters set in the precarious situation, whom fortunately are not represented with CGI. Wouldn't put it past these guys, considering when the bugs are small they are still computer generated, but anyway, I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. Let's take a look at 8-Legged Freaks and see if the plot and story have held up over the years. Because that's what people care about in a giant killer bug movie.
Do you know fear?
The emotion or the game series?
This is a story of monsters.
Oh, yeah, thanks for that. For a second I was worried I accidentally put in a romantic comedy.
I've seen them. I've seen them in visions.
You see things visually. Got it.
And you will too.
Well, that's why I bought the movie. This intro happens to be a radio broadcast by the resident conspiracy theorist Harlan Griffith, played by Doug E. Doug, which introduces the setting of Prosperity, Arizona, and segues into a sleep-deprived trucker hauling toxic waste. Okay, I figured something was going to happen, but why did they bother to establish that he was exhausted? I mean, wouldn't him being that groggy mean that he would be more likely to just run the critter down and not even notice? Obviously, this is a means to accidentally have a single barrel of miscellaneous bad stuff wind up in the nearby lake, which just so happens to be where Joshua Taft, played by Tom Noonan, goes to collect crickets, and wouldn't you know it, he happens to own a spider farm! And not that he actually harvests anything from the spider farm. He has a shitload of spiders, and he makes money by having a shitload of spiders. It doesn't look like he charges for tours, as he lets Mike, played by Scott Terra, waltz right in and check out all his new exhibits, without so much as a cover charge. Interestingly, not the opening radio broadcast, but this scene becomes our big exposition dump. We find out that the spider's new diet has resulted in them growing much larger, and they point out important spider traits for later in this movie.
Yeah, look how they kill. They call this an Iraq attack.
No, they were supposed to call this a rack attack, but they ended up calling the movie 8-Legged Freaks. Good thing, too, because a rack attack sounds really stupid. They go over the trapdoor spiders, jumping spiders, and orb weavers in this will obviously be important later detail, before Mike has an alert on his quickly established his character as a nerd watch and must leave. Then... Good thing Mike got out while he did, because it looks like all the spiders escaped well before Joshua knocked over the cages. What happens after this is not important. So we jump ahead another week to introduce our lead, David Arquette, whom at the time was probably best known as Dewey from the Scream trilogy. Which, at the time, it was 2002, they had still only made 3. It wasn't until 2011 that they fucked that up. In this movie, he plays Chris McCormick, son of the deceased man whom owned the McCormick mine in town, and as they hold a meeting in the barely relevant Prosperity Mall to discuss the fate of the mines, Chris shows up to say, "No, you will not sell our town's most precious treasure to fill with toxic waste. There's gold in the mine, and by gum, we shall mine." And that leaves me not exactly sure what I'm supposed to think of that. I mean, yeah, toxic waste is cartoonishly evil, but gold is money, and money is also evil, right? So are the spiders the good guys?
Don't make the rest of the town suffer just because you feel guilty you weren't around when your father died.
Don't progress the plot just because I have a dark backstory to exposit about your character. Which establishes Chris as a bad boy, and therefore all the ladies want him. Possibly because our love interest lady also happens to be the police, Sheriff Parker, played by Carrie Verher, whose role as Amy Klein in Hellraiser Deader isn't causing me any horrific flashbacks whatsoever. But hey, she likes him. You can tell because after cuffing him, she lets him go because assault, especially of a political official, is one of those optional crimes. Besides, we have more important things to watch, like Deputy Willis, played by Rick Overton, doing menial labor that has no bearing on the plot. Which in a horror movie is a huge sign that somebody is about to die.
Oh, honey, give it a rest.
The fuck? Okay, first of all, drywall is not silly putty, and second, what the fuck did that cat do? Why? Moving on from that oh-so-entertaining scene, we see Chris's only family left in town is his Aunt Gladys, played by Eileen Ryan. She exposits to the audience more backstory, that Chris beat the crap out of the sheriff's husband way back when, but the truth is he really loves her. And one more thing.
Lose a face fuzz.
The hell's wrong with facial hair?
Makes your mouth look like a stripper's cow.
These days, wouldn't shaving actually make you look more like that? So he heads out to make amends with the long legs of the law. But of course there's more drama going on inside thanks to Sheriff Sam's daughter, Ashley, played by a young Scarlett Johansson.
I knew guys just like Brett when I was
Mom,
your age.
I'm not you, okay? I'm not gonna get pregnant at 16.
Yeah, it's awful convenient that all the characters in this town make a habit of expositing backstory every 10 minutes, and it's not like movies are supposed to do something silly like, I don't know, show, don't tell. They make amends just as fast, and Ashley gets a taser to protect her from the evil creature man, who is never to be trusted. AKA her boyfriend. If they were making this big of a detail over him having the wrong skin color, that would be intolerance, but him being male? Well, that's just common knowledge, men are the scum of the earth. Which we clearly see as when Chris comes over and asks, maybe, I don't know if you aren't busy and it's not a bother, could you possibly talk sometime a little bit? We all know he's just trying to get into her pants, and therefore we should hate him. Mike, on the other hand, is trying to find out what's going on with Joshua, and finds that things are not quite as he left them.
There's no sign of Joshua, his parrot, or any of the arachnids.
Dude, huge fucking cobwebs everywhere. That kinda counts as signs of the arachnids. Seeing signs everywhere of death and fucking massive spiders, Mike of course decides to follow them into the old abandoned mine. Yeah, the mine had an entrance 10 feet from Joshua's backyard. Why wouldn't it? At least when he finds one small sign of giant spiders and a much damn bigger one, he decides to get the fuck out of there. Unfortunately though, at the same time, Chris is leading a team of miners in the other nondescript subterranean location. Of course, he's not concerned about giant spiders, but methane.
I want all men to wear their masks at all times. If you start feeling disoriented, get to one of these higher chambers as soon as possible.
Hold up, yeah, the gold is hard to mine because of methane gas, but methane gas can be harvested and sold too, you know. I'm sure it's not easy, but the whole town is a shit show because they have no money and they're sitting on a big pile of methane gas. It's like complaining that there's no grocery store when you live in the world of Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. As Mike walks home...
Hey, can you give me a ride into town, mister?
Sure, hop in, kid.
What? I seriously, I didn't skip over any scenes here. Chris just went from working in the mine, starting work in the mine, to driving home on the road with the thing, because he was going somewhere. Yeah. It gives the opportunity for Mike to explain about the giant spiders, and Chris gets to be the first in a long list of people that doesn't believe this bullshit for a second.
You know, it does kind of look like an old piece of cactus.
It killed my friend! Can't I do that? And no, Chris wasn't on the road because a lot of time has passed, as the guys he was just instructing are just starting what it was he requested, but run into trouble, for obvious reasons. Well, if EDF has taught me anything, they were fucked in those tunnels to begin with. I wonder if they're going to showcase how Webb can shoot through solid rock and still kill you. But let's go back to introducing characters, such as Matt Chuckry as Brett.
Going off to get wasted, have a wild orgy, and I might steal a car. You want one?
Brett, I'm on the phone.
I'm trying to make deals about dumping more toxic waste. Don't talk to me about Grand Theft Auto, it's not nearly evil enough. Thus, Brett leaves, and Wade, played by Leon Rippey, notices some strange behavior on the town's ostrich farm. Which is not worth thinking about, so he just goes back inside. Seriously, mysteriously vanishing giant birds have no bearing on his behavior for the rest of the movie, and instead we move on to hearing about how more and more family pets are mysteriously disappearing. Yeah, bunch of dead pets. That's a pleasant image. Let's go to something much more enjoyable, such as making out with Scarlett Johansson.
Well, I can't help it. You just bring out the beast in me.
Oh no, this evil man of dangerousness is kissing her slightly more than she is comfortable with. Whatever shall this poor woman do?
Back off!
Electrocute his genitals and steal his truck. Okay, that's not just overboard, that's downright fucking evil right there. Please don't tell me we're actually supposed to side with her on this one. To make matters worse, as we're just about at the 40-minute mark, the giant spiders attack. Therefore, Brett and his miscellaneous group of friends rush to escape on their dirt bikes. Problem is that, outside of Brett, none of these characters are the least bit important, so they're all picked off one by one, leaving Brett as the lone survivor, taking out the town's phone lines, and making their situation considerably worse in the process. Might I also add, it seems really silly to waste so much time putting on helmets. Yeah, it's dangerous to crash, but whether you have a helmet or not, if you lose that bike, you're fucking dead. He does manage to escape, slipping into the entrance to the McCormick mine. Yeah, the mine had an entranceway out in the middle of Miscellaneous Road, why wouldn't it?
It's where they always put the food.
Oh, come on. Are family pets like potato chips to these damn things? Considerably less upsetting, Aunt Gladys gets taken off as well, and when Chris goes to check where she went, finds a clue.
This ain't no cactus.
No, now I am certain we're dealing with some form of agave. With this in hand, Chris rushes to Mike so he can exposit more information. Yep, spiders are getting bigger, and this was an orb weaver spider, so there's a possibility she will live long enough to be saved during the climax. And yeah, sure, Chris believes him now, but what are they going to do to convince the rest of the family? That works. Thankfully, this just so happens to be a horror movie set out in bumfuck nowhere, where the population actually does have access to firearms. So the sheriff calls her deputy on the radio to get things moving, requesting all the weapons at her place pronto, so that they can fight off the horde long enough to make it up to Harlan's radio trailer and warn the town's populace.
The town is being overrun by giant spiders.
What the hell kind of bullshit is that?
Which turns out to be pointless, as again, nobody fucking believes until the spiders are right up in their face. Kinda like that. Sam calls for the whole town to meet up at the Prosperity Mall, as that set hasn't been utilized nearly enough, and then the shit seriously hits the fan, convincing everyone that the spiders are probably real, considering they're killing people left and right. This results in a chaotic action sequence with only a couple of really stupid moments.
Oh, rack attack.
Seriously, who the hell was convinced that was so damn witty? Point is, after all of this is said and done, they make it into the mall where they can hold up until help arrives. Of course, they need to call for said help, so utilizing the one and only cell phone in town, owned by Wade, the mayor, of course, who carries it around everywhere despite there being nowhere with a good signal, they plan to climb up to the roof and make the call. Great plan. It's a good thing spiders can't climb. Wait. They got through, right?
This is emergency services, sir, not dial-in.
This is not a crank
I'm
call.
hanging up on
Don't
you,
hang
sir.
up on me, lady. Please, please!
You know, prank calls are illegal. Not just to 911, but anyone actually. They could still send a few officers. At this point, the spiders begin breaking down the gate into the mall, preparing our second major action sequence to get underway. In case you're wondering, that's the spiders going around saying, "Ouch!" Yeah, I don't know how toxic crickets mean that you're now able to talk, but there you go.
Get back! Eight-legged break!
Alright, there's the title of your movie, which, as they say, was actually ad-libbed by David Arquette. Which does make me wonder, I mean, if I was the star of this movie, would it be called Ass-Faced Cockshitters? Eventually, Brett fleeing from the spiders in the mines, and the townspeople fleeing from the spiders in the mall, causes them to meet up as Brett breaks down the locked door in the basement of the mall, leading directly into the mine. Yeah, the mine had an entrance in the mall basement, why wouldn't it? They do temporarily block off their pursuers, which fortunately are only behind in the mall all of a sudden, and the group goes forth in search of an exit.
You went back there for that? God, lose that thing. It's gonna slow us down.
Actually, why'd you have to establish it's there? Now we're gonna have to use it in the climax.
What's that smell?
Wasn't me.
Methane gas. A lot of it.
Methane has no smell. Unless the source of methane in mines is some jackass pumping a bunch of previously harvested methane into the mines just to fuck it all up, and had already had the odor added artificially for safety reasons to it and stuff. It's not the least believable thing in this movie when you think about it.
The slightest spark or an open flame can blow us all to hell.
Such as those lanterns or flashlights. If they're not designed to prevent the gas from getting in, it will ignite all the same. On their way out, they trip across a big bad orb weaver den. Thus, Chris decides he has to stay behind and look for Gladys, while getting everybody ready for the final arachnid showdown.
Brett, I'm gonna need your bike.
My bike?
Brett, just do it.
I've been trying to tell you this for a long time.
Now?
Yes, now.
Well, we're at the 86-minute mark. Surviving or not, he's got to get through these lines sooner or later. Doesn't matter much, as Sam does the Prosperity Arizona tradition of expositing Chris's backstory for him. That he beat up her ex because her ex was a cheater, and Chris left to not break up Sam's family, but he loves her and all that.
Go on.
That was easy.
Be careful what you're getting into, though, Chris. I mean, she raised her daughter to electrocute a man's genitals if he ever makes her feel mildly uncomfortable. I'm not saying, don't give her a fair shake, just keep the ring in your pocket for a while. It doesn't take too long for Chris to find his aunt, still alive and well, which leads you to believe that the pets taken by the orb weavers may also still be alive. It would help if they ever actually bothered looking for them at all. More importantly, the orb weaver nest just so happens to be right where the legendary super vein of gold was! How convenient. Slightly less convenient, it's the fucking orb weaver nest.
Shoot it! Shoot it! I'll set off the gas! I can't!
Why the fuck did you even bother pulling it out? Did you think you were going to scare it away? Movie that has an internal combustion engine. It runs by igniting gas. It would ignite the gas! But it's the climax, so something so simple must be especially convoluted. So using the spare taser on the generator, the electricity travels to the broken light, hitting a book of matches, which then ignite the gas, resulting in the action movie tradition of running the fuck away from a huge explosion. As expected, now that the crisis is officially over, emergency services finally show up. Wonderful, we can run out the last few minutes watching them file police reports. And the movie comes to a close with Chris and Sam getting together, the spiders dead as shit, and the gold mine bringing prosperity to prosperity. Which, if all my searches are correct, doesn't actually exist. It's really hard for me to try and figure out how long it would take to get from Tucson to there when there is nowhere. Anyway, that was Eight-Legged Freaks. It's not bad. It's not hard to believe that a ridiculous movie with giant bugs and more than its share of tongue-in-cheek moments would happen to be something I enjoy, but honestly, the quality of the movie kinda goes all over the place. The CGI spiders are a pretty major factor, as at the time they allegedly looked very good, but I just find it hard to feel any kind of dread for the creatures that honestly have very few shots of actual props. That and the animation seeming a tad off on occasion doesn't help, but overall the critters are at least decent. The characters are relatively well done, recognizable for their quirks, and well acted, but a bit tropey here and there. Of course, this movie wasn't trying to be some great, deep, thought-provoking statement, so that's not much to complain about in that regard. My main issue with this movie is with the direction in a lot of areas. The slaughter of family pets is hard to find comedic, at least to me, and the fact that the spiders can talk. Why the fuck can they talk? They don't do it in any meaningful capacity. Nobody in this movie recognizes the spiders are talking, and we don't ever see them having a conversation. But the fact that they say weirdly high-pitched quips here and there sure as hell raises an eyebrow. I feel like this movie was trying to be reasonable popcorn entertainment, and in that sense it succeeded, but like many simple movies I've reviewed, I feel like there was potential to perhaps even accidentally become something greater than that. However, as far as I'm concerned, the relatively simple characters, and especially the habit of other characters to exposit backstory so we don't have to dare see what the hell everyone is talking about, doesn't help matters any. Yes, we want to get to the spiders and stay there as long as possible, but perhaps move some of the backstory into the present situation so it won't be exposition dumped every 10 minutes. Just a thought. In any case, Eight-Legged Freaks comes in at 3 parking lot predators out of 5. It's certainly entertaining, and it doesn't have huge faults, but I'd hardly call it a grand cinematic experience. Thank you all for watching. I've been Shado, and remember, biohazard means a hazard to biological systems. It kills you. It doesn't turn you into the fucking Hulk.
There's no way that you're telling me that that thing back there is from Earth. All right. They're spiders from Mars. You happy?